Chiefs have won Super Bowl 57.
You either win or you learn. That's how I feel. You either win or you learn. You know, it is a tough feeling to come up short. You know, it's a very tough feeling. But I know that the only direction is to rise.
Picking a fight with your own fans is the absolute worst thing a coach can do.
Guess what? They have every right to boo you. And you need to take that because that's part of your job as a head coach.
They lost because the entire back seven of their defense stinks. No, this is not the team that should have been spending almost $13 million a year on a running back. But it sounds fun and it's exciting. So no, I don't like it.
You didn't even think to do that. On the ground, and a first down, and a
touchdown. 4th down and 5, and they have a risk of giving the Washington Commanders the ball near midfield. I'd rather see them punt.
Wilson's off here, not an easy.
Let it fly, and it is caught. A.J. Brown inside the 20-yard line.
This game is about overcoming adversity. There's going to be good plays in the game. There's going to be bad plays in the game. There's going to be good moments in the season. There's going to be bad moments in the season. But adversity is what makes you who you are.
Man, it's amazing. We're here, Super Bowl. But the goal wasn't just getting there. The goal is to win. And we're going to celebrate, enjoy this, and get right back to work.
Why don't you just pick the team that always wins to win? It would be easy. Maybe next year, maybe when they're going for the 4-peat, we'll see.
You can doubt the Chiefs. You can dislike the Chiefs. You can disrespect the Chiefs. You're going to have to deal with the Chiefs as the AFC champions.
Tom Brady didn't even win back-to-back-to-back Super Bowl titles, and it would cement Patrick Mahomes as the greatest quarterback in the history of the National Football
League. Man, it gets sweeter and sweeter every time, baby. Just when you think things couldn't get any better. And how about it? We get a chance to do it 3 times in a row. How do you get excited for that, baby? You go party in Las Vegas, then get back to it.
We'll overcome this too because, the type of guys that we have in there that we'll use this to motivate us. We'll use this pain. We'll use this failure to motivate us so we can make it a strength.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by the man who is only 3 championships away from a 3-peat. Kyle, how's it going?
Doing fantastic. Perfection on the video as always. You were concerned about how you could do this this year around. How are you going to get people excited? But that was really good. I got goosebumps. Fantastic.
Good. Yes. It was a bit of I had to be creative this year. I kind of had to just go with I didn't think I could pull off the people are disrespecting the Chiefs and look at what they've overcome. One I usually go with. So I had to get a little creative.
Yeah, you definitely got creative, and I definitely think it worked. So good job.
Yes. Kyle, we have an entire hour to talk about one football game. We are going to bring up every little detail of Super Bowl 59. Speaking of 59, that's the exact point total I have in the Pick'em show, or exact point total you have in the Pick'em show, meaning that it's within 10 points. Once again, it will all come down to if I can predict the Super Bowl correct or not, Kyle. We've done this 5 years. I've won the first 4. Will this be the year that you are champion? We'll see.
I got myself an arm's length. I need a mistake here, and we'll see what your pick comes down to. I have a team that I think is going to win. I have a pick for myself, even though it means nothing for our show. But I am curious to see who you pick, and I'm seeing if it works out in my favor.
Yes, so we will do our Super Bowl picks here. Plenty of stuff to get into. Kyle, let's not mess around. Let's get into it. This is I have to say, for as dour as I think we all were conference championship of these were not maybe necessarily the 2 teams that everyone was rooting for, this should be a great game. These are I would say the two best teams in the league this year, or at the very least, the best team in the AFC and the best team in the NFC. I don't know. These feel two championship quality teams right here, which usually happens, but doesn't always happen in the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. Like, I think if there was one thing we were going to look at for this season is like, we obviously had a lot of really great teams this season. There was a lot of strong teams at the top, I thought. But I would say definitely, at least from December on, these were undisputed the best two performing teams. And from December on, they've looked like the best two teams. They've played their best ball at the right time. And they both made the Super Bowl. I think it was very well warranted, and it should be a very good game. I think both of these teams are loaded with talent. These may be the two most complete teams in football right now, and they got a lot going for them. So there's a lot of drama. There's a lot of matchups that I think are very fascinating because there's just, Pro Bowlers, all pros, stars across both of these rosters that I think are really impactful.
Yeah, it should be a very good game. Very much looking forward to this game, and I think that, again, there's so many ways we can start with it. I don't know exactly where you want to go, but I think maybe just to talk about the historic impact of this game before we get into previewing it. Obviously for the Chiefs, could be the first team ever to win 3 straight Super Bowls. That's saying something. Now, I believe there have been teams who won 3 straight championships in the NFL, but that's, again, 3 straight Super Bowls would be the first team ever to do that. Also, for the Eagles, I think that there's massive impact here, Kyle. Saquon Barkley, this could put him in the Hall of Fame, discussion. If they win here, he might already be in the discussion, but this would really help his case. Even Jalen Hurts, is it crazy to say that he could start getting some Hall of Fame buzz if you have been to 2 Super Bowls and win 1? There's so much, obviously, with every Super Bowl, but this could really impact a ton.
Yeah. It definitely puts the Eagles players on the path, right? Like they may not, it may not be as historically significant right now as the Chiefs winning a 3rd straight one, but it puts a lot of these players on that path towards a historical moment. And there's a lot of fantastic players that by the end of their careers could all have a Hall of Fame resumes on this Eagles team. So it's without a doubt one of the most impactful things. And I think it's going to be very important to see how these teams rise to that occasion. We saw this matchup before. Jalen Hurts played outstanding in that game. He gave himself a great chance to win. It didn't come up that way. And they want to go back and get this one. They want to go back and get this. And it would change the status for a lot of these guys like Saquon, like Jalen Hurts, like A.J. Brown. All of those guys I feel like would have a massive bump off of this.
Yeah. Kyle, you're getting a lot of comments about your backwards visor.
Yeah. What's wrong? It's Boston College. Here we go, baby.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think it's good. I like it.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah. We got to prop ourselves up, Kyle, because the chat's not going to do it for us.
Yeah, definitely not. That's fine. We're doing what we can. I think I'm stylish. It's fine.
Yeah, they're here. They're listening to us, so we appreciate it. You can be mean to us. That's a fair trade. Kyle, let's get into this. You brought up Jalen Hurts. Let's just start there. With Jalen Hurts, the last time these two teams played, had probably the best game of his career. He also did have a fumble that was recovered for a touchdown. That wasn't good. But other than that, I think that, he was fantastic. And you have to assume that for the Eagles to win, it's going to have to start there. You're going to at least need a very good Jalen Hurts performance in this game. He's so far done a great job protecting the football. He doesn't put the ball in harm's way. He will throw checkdowns instead of pushing the ball down the field at times, but he will also take his chances with A.J. Brown down the field. It feels like this game, again, quarterbacks are always so important. We just kind of assume Mahomes is going to be great. Hurts doesn't have to match him, but he is going to have to get close. Also, first off, we have a super chat from Overlap 618 before I kick it back to you. Where are the predictions? Can you post Overlap? The #1 mod is predicting the Eagles by 12. Okay, yes, we posted it here, Overlap. There you go.
Yeah, we got the post there for you. We'll give our picks at the end of the show. And yeah, the Jalen Hurts thing is very interesting because I do feel like I've been very critical of Jalen Hurts throughout this season. And, sometimes I look like at myself, like, am I too critical of this guy? And like, is it fair to evaluate him on the presence of, is he an elite quarterback or is he not? And sometimes I think that I'm not, and then sometimes I think I'm being too critical, and then sometimes I think I'm not. And it really just kind of depends on the game for him. He was obviously fantastic in the last Super Bowl. This is now his 2nd Super Bowl. Granted, it's not all wins and losses for quarterbacks, but he's played very well in the playoffs these these 2 Super Bowl appearances seasons. He just has to not play Tampa in the playoffs, and things typically go pretty well for him. So yeah, I think that he's a very good quarterback, and I think he's going against the best quarterback in the league, maybe one of the best of all time. So he's got a lot to live up to. I think the biggest thing for this year with Jalen Hurts compared to the last Super Bowl, I don't think he has to be as prolific as the last Super Bowl he was in. I don't think he has to throw for 304 yards, 8 yards per attempt, have all those numbers and all that kind of stuff. The big thing, and we've said it every time that team plays Kansas City Chiefs, he has to be basically mistake-free. And it's a very tough thing to do because the Steve Spagnuolo defense is so tough to go against. It's so tough to play clean ball. And he has to be mistake-free. And yeah, I don't even think it's just beyond the interceptions and fumbles. Like, there are things still that drive me crazy about him sometimes, even if you can go back to like the Packers game in the postseason. Like, he can't take sacks that drive him out of field goal range. He can't take those bad plays in red zone opportunities where points are on chance have to be when there are a chance to get points on the board, stuff like that. He has to play a clean game throughout. He has to be the smartest player on the field when he's out there, and he has to maximize the opportunities for the Eagles to score points, because scoring points are going to be at a premium in this game.
Yeah, I think that's a great point because, like, you're right. He had the safety in the Rams game as well. To your point, those are the things that you look at. The flip side is he hasn't thrown an interception since November 10th, so he's done a good job at not. I mean, I still think listen, obviously, when you go through a stretch like that, you're going to get a couple of drop picks in there, but like that's still an impressive stretch, no matter how you slice it. I think that for me, I think part of it has probably been with Hurts. I have a great defense. I have a great running game. He kind of knows his job in many ways is to not screw things up. He doesn't have to be the guy who makes plays left and right, just make plays on occasion. He might have to make more plays in this game, though.
I would agree with that. There's going to be a lot of big third down situations he's going to have to convert, and it's not just going to be quarterback sneaks or anything like that. He may convert those with his legs. He may have to pass on the outside, but this Chiefs defense is still just so good at putting you in positions you don't want to be in, and he has to be ready for those situations because we know what this Eagles team doesn't want to be in. They don't want to be in a situation where the box is loaded, Saquon Barkley can't take the handoff, and they have to throw the ball downfield on the outside. They haven't really had that in the postseason, and we've talked about A.J. Brown and his struggles in this postseason, and they have to be able to find those connections on the outside and downfield against this team because the Chiefs are going to load up. They're going to make it frustrating for them at the line of scrimmage. They're going to do everything they can to slow down this running game, which is the best in the league right now.
Yeah, the running game is so fascinating because obviously the the Eagles' offensive line is loaded. Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Mekhi Becton, and Lane Johnson are 5 great players. Jurgens and Dickerson are both banged up, but they're both going to play. Maybe you don't get 100% of them. That could be an issue, but on paper, it doesn't get much better than that. But the Chiefs stopped the run very well. They have stars on their defensive line as well, like Chris Jones and George Karlaftis. They have good linebackers. And I think the underrated aspect of all of this is to have good secondary players who can make tackles. And, you saw with Washington, when your guys in the secondary aren't making tackles, Saquon's going to get those 60-yard touchdown runs. I think the Chiefs could potentially limit those. But still, you have to again, it's the strength of the Eagles team is their running game. You assume that it's going to be a strength here. The question is, will it be as much of a strength as they're used to in a typical game? And it might not be.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating because, like you said, the City Chiefs not only are a very aggressive defense, but a good tackling defense. They're going to put a lot of guys at the line of scrimmage. They're going to make a lot of decisions to force the ball out of Saquon Barkley's hands, or at least try to. And I think a lot of this is going to come down to the interior offensive line for the Eagles because we know these guys on the outside at the tackle positions are really good, and the guys on the inside are really good in their own rights too. They lost Jason Kelsey this offseason. Cam Jurgens slid over the center. He's been very good. They got Mekhi Becton, who's been pretty good this year too, and then Landon Dickerson obviously is a fantastic left guard as well. Like, those are the guys on the interior that I think are going to be tested the most, at least, because this Eagles team not only is a very good team running the ball, they're very good running the ball on the inside, and those guys have to rise to the occasion against a really good front group for Kansas City with Chris Jones, with the guys in the linebacker room like Nick Bolton, Leo Chenal, Drew Tranquil, and then even the safeties come up and make tackles like Justin Reed. So he is he has definitely got to step up. Those guys in the middle, I think, definitely have to step up because we know those tackles are amazing. Those are the best part of this team right now, and Mailata might be the best player on this team on either team. Honestly, he might be the best player in the Super Bowl. So they're going to definitely test those interior guys as much as they can.
Overlap 618 with a super chat. Steve Spagnuolo, Steve Fangola. What a mope. Guy blitzes his best cover corner. Total moron. Wait till that Philly offensive line dominates. Fly Eagles fly from overlap to mod. Kyle, do you agree? Is Steve Spagnuolo a moron?
No, I do not. I don't think he's that bad. Having lost to him twice in Super Bowls, I don't think he's that bad.
Well, once, right? He wasn't there
once. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Everyone, it was kind of his defense, but everyone forgets he wasn't there the second Giants one. But yeah. Where were we? I'm off. The Chiefs. How I've lost where we're going. What was we talking about?
Interior offensive line of the Eagles against the Chiefs defense.
Yeah. Obviously you got Chris Jones to deal with, who's most known for his pass rush, but can definitely still beat someone one-on-one when it's a running game. And I think another important detail is the way the Chiefs tend to play the running game in big games, right? Like how many times have we seen them play the Ravens and just like shut them down?
Yeah. I mean, it's happened a lot. That's the fascinating thing with this defense. Like statistically, they'll be like, okay, yeah, this team's 10th against the run. But against the Eagles, they'll somehow rise to the occasion or something like that, or the Ravens and just shut the running game down. They're like, oh, it's 12th against the pass. I don't even know the exact number. But like, then it's like, oh, this team can't throw the ball. They're so malleable in the way they play, right? And Spagnuolo is so good at just saying, it's almost like a Belichickian version of it, like where it's like, we're going to take away your best option. You got to find option number 2. And they're so good at doing that. The tough thing I just have for this game from Kansas City's perspective is the Eagles' number 1 option is so darn good, which is Saquon Barkley in this offensive line pushing people around.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the Chiefs put all of their resources into stopping it, can they stop it? That's something that I definitely want to see because, I mean, Mailata has been the best left tackle in football when he's played this season, like just bar none. And then you have, the other guys on that offensive line aren't slouches either. And it's just, you look at that group and, you kind of just think that they can go up and and win against almost anybody.
Yeah. I agree. And I think the other thing you look at as well is in that Bills game in the conference championship, I think we saw them say, okay, we like to run the ball. We're not going to just abandon the run because it wasn't working earlier. And then they were able to have some nice runs as the game goes on as well. That's the other thing is you can go all out to stop the run, and you might be able to get that working for a drive or two, but it's hard to imagine you're going to get that working late into the third quarter and into fourth quarter.
Yeah. And there's some elements to that. Obviously they had to respect Josh Allen, I think a little more than they're going to respect Jalen Hurts. And, Jalen Hurts is going to have to make them pay if they do that, though. That's the other element to this is like, going back to Hurts as far as this matchup goes. If they are putting 7, 8 guys, even 6, 7 guys in the box, Jalen Hurts has to make the throws. Like, there's just no excuse because then they won't win the matchups. They won't be able to win the ball because you can't block 7 on 5. You just can't. And so it becomes a numbers game where if they're going to do that, then Jalen Hurts has to make the throws downfield, and that's going to be the big element to this game. He's capable of doing it. He hasn't done it as much in this playoffs. Like you said, he's done a lot of check down stuff. He's been the kind of game manager mode because of this defense and run game, and Saquon's been able to break off these huge running plays. But he's got to be able to make some plays 8-10 yards down the field and make this defense pay for their setup.
Or, 30 yards down the field, right? Like, let's go there. Kyle, how would you play this if you're the Chiefs? Because they have John McDuffie and Jalen Watson, both of whom have at times kind of taken on the number 1 corner role. They don't really just put one guy on one guy every now and then, but they haven't really done that. So I don't know exactly what they're going to do entering this Super Bowl. You think they would want to double A.J. Brown as much as possible, but he's, if you're playing one safety deep, that's leaving the entire rest of the field open, essentially. I don't know how often you can do that. What do you do if you're Kansas City? If you're putting an extra safety in the box, only one safety deep, how do you play this?
Well, the correct answer, I think, is going to have to be a good mix of everything. You have to be respectful of the fact that AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are on the field, right? You can't just say, well, we're going to go all out to stop everything up front and put 7-8 in the box at all times. Like, that's just not going to work. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how they mix it up. Are they going to try and just keep their 7 in the box and keep the 2 safeties deep and see if they can stop the run that way? Or are they just going to keep mixing it up until they can confuse Jalen Hurts in those situations, or they get burned? It's going to be a very fascinating matchup. But it really does feel like a matchups game as far as this specific game goes. Like, it really does feel like Trent McDuffie and AJ Brown are going to be a huge pivotal matchup in this game. Or if he goes against Jalen Watson, like you said, they do mix it up sometimes. But like those guys, whoever wins those games those matchups on the outside, whoever wins at the line of scrimmage as far as this defensive line against this offensive line goes, feels like it's going to have a huge advantage in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Kyle. If it's me, and we can talk more about the pass rush in just a second. If it's me, though, if they're playing single safety deep man coverage, I don't care who's on AJ Brown. I'm just throwing it to him. Like everyone kind of says, what about these other mismatches? What about your superstar? Throw it to him.
Yeah, that's the issue. That's the issue Kansas City is going to run into. You can't throw that extra guy in the box every time because AJ Brown's going to have 160 yards. I know he hasn't had the best playoffs, but it's still AJ Brown, man. Like he's going to be locked in for this game. So it's definitely going to become an interesting dilemma for Kansas City. And it's why this Philadelphia team is so difficult to go against, because they have all these matchup advantages. Like if you think you're going to stop Saquon Barkley, well, they can go to AJ Brown, who's a superstar in his own right. If you're going to go all out to stop AJ Brown, they have Dallas Goedert, who's a very good tight end with a good bounce back season, and Devontae Smith on the other side, who are going to dominate mismatches or dominate single coverage too in their own right. If you manage to keep them in front of you and to hold them to 3rd and short, 4th and short, they're going to use Jalen Hurts in the run game. Like that's just there is a lot of impossible answers, it feels like, to the Eagles at times when it comes to the matchups that they bring you, because they are so talented. They're so talented across the board.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like football strategy. Like it's a lot more fancy than this, but like at its simplest form, you have 2 extra players defensively. Where do you want to put the attention on? And you can kind of pick and choose. And you can put a guy to cover Saquon Barkley and put him in the box, or you can have a guy deep to cover AJ Brown. You can put 2 guys deep and try to just take away deep down the field, but that leaves you open in the running game. The issue is the Eagles essentially have 4 guys that you want to double team every play, because they have Saquon Barkley, they have AJ Brown, they have Devonta Smith, and they have Dallas Goedert. There's no easy answer here.
Yeah, and in theory, you do want to put a spy on Jalen Hurts sometimes too, right?
Right.
You don't want to give him you don't want to leave him in like a man coverage situation where everybody downfield has their back turned, and all of a sudden Jalen Hurts has a 30-yard run on his hands because nobody's looking. So it becomes a variable. Even though you have the 2 extra guys because of the quarterback and all that, it's still a lot of like, well, we have to account for everybody on the field.
Yeah, you think about like there is the doomsday scenario here for the Chiefs where they can't stop the run very well. They don't have enough depth in the secondary to cover down the field. The one thing they have is someone that everyone except for Overlap 618 agrees is a great defensive coordinator in Steve Spagnuolo, who is someone who I think, listen, this Eagles offensive line is great. And usually when you have a great offensive line against a great defensive line, the great offensive line wins. As you mentioned, kind of the weaker spot is the interior. You got Chris Jones, who could make plays, and that's an opportunity. Jalen Hurts will hold on to the ball for a little bit if he doesn't have a place to go with it. But obviously, if he has places to go with it, you have to get there quicker. You have to wonder how much the blitzing is going to come into play. And again, Saquon Barkley is great at picking up blitzes, but you'd rather him taking hits there as opposed to, hitting your guy down the field with the ball in his hands. You wonder how much Spagnuolo is going to blitz in this game. It's not going to be 0, and you wonder how successful he's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be a huge element to it. And, this defense deserves its credit. Spagnuolo definitely deserves its credit. I mean, they went against maybe the best offense in the NFL in the AFC Championship game, and they forced several key stops. They forced 2 4th down stops. They forced 2 additional punts after that, too. Like, it wasn't a perfect game, and the Bills were able to get there still at times. But they came up with the biggest stops in the game, and they also came up with several key stops when they needed them to hold off and win that game. So they absolutely can bring it and rise to the occasion. So it's definitely going to be, as much as we praise this Eagles team and the talent on their offensive roster, there's also plenty of talent in this team. They have 2 all-pro players in Chris Jones and Trent McDuffie. And then there's not really a weak link across the board, right? That's the one thing that's beautiful about this Kansas City team. Like, you would say maybe like Mike Dana is the weakest player on this team. And Mike Dana's a pretty good player sometimes. So, like, he had a big sack in the game in the AFC Championship game. Like, he is there's not really a lot of players you can say, this is my target on this Kansas City defense. And that's what they're so good at.
Right. Yeah, it's difficult. I think what you really will see from Spagnuolo is just a lot of different coverages. So, like, mixing things up. You kind of talked about this earlier. Just because if you do one thing and say this is what we're doing, the Eagles have a plan around it. But maybe sometimes and they do a great job at disguising, like, it's one safety deep. Now all of a sudden, second safety drops back, and now the AJ Brown go route is in double coverage. Like, that's just what we're going to see a lot of in this game, I think.
Yeah. Do you think the Buffalo game is something that they that the way the Buffalo played that game is something that the Eagles are going to look at? Like, just the way that they handled that situation. Like, it's not the same personnel exactly, and Josh Allen obviously is Josh Allen, but you use Allen and Hurts in a lot of similar ways as far as the running game goes, and they ran the ball 32 times in that game and had success. And are they going to look at that and say, like, this is what we want to do, this is our bread and butter, and we're just going to commit to that similar to the way Buffalo did?
I think it's possible. I certainly think it's possible. We have a super chat saying fake team playing in a fake bowl, which only one, I don't know. Sure. But I think so. And I also think an advantage that I think the Eagles have is they're more aggressive on 4th downs, which usually in these big games that favors the team that is more aggressive. Not always, but the last time the Eagles, I guess the one time the Eagles won a Super Bowl, they were very aggressive on 4th downs, including the Philly play. Sorry to keep bringing up Super Bowls that your team lost, Kyle, but I think that the way that the Eagles go for it on 4th downs is a benefit, and they might be more willing to run the ball more because if they get a 4th down and 1, they know they can convert it. Kyle, do the Chiefs stop a tush push in this game?
No, I think it's too hard to stop.
Not.
Yeah, I think I still think it's too difficult to stop. I mean, Chris Jones is Chris Jones. I have to give him his respect, but I still think it's going to take a lot to. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be tough to stop for anybody.
Yeah, I think I agree. Do we have? I guess that's the Eagles' offense against the Chiefs' defense. Did we miss anything?
I do think it should give in credit to, as we talked about, still, like, you're going to take your bet with AJ Brown in those situations and Devontae Smith and all of that. Like, it should be given credit that Watson and McDuffie have played very well this season, including McDuffie in coverage situations. Like, it's still going to be something where it's not like you said. I think we said it on the Wednesday show as far as Super Bowl MVP goes. Like, he's not necessarily just a pure ball hawk. He's not going to go up and get interceptions or anything like that. But he has blanketed a lot of good receivers this season. So it's not necessarily going to be easy to say we're going to throw at Trent McDuffie in those situations and hope for the best. He can absolutely win that matchup. There is a size mismatch there, but he's done it before and he could do it again. I guess the one element to this game we didn't really talk about, and we talked about a little bit on Wednesday, and I just wanted to rehash it, is the Chiefs defense as far as playing number 2 receivers and then going against Devontae Smith in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is interesting. Like, they've played well this season, obviously, and I think they've gotten better as the year gone along. But they have really struggled. They haven't really played a true secondary receiver a lot this season. In some of the situations they really struggled. You talk about that Tank Dell game in the regular season where Tank Dell was awesome in that game before, he got injured on that touchdown play. That was a fantastic, that was a really good game for him. They just haven't really faced a lot of those players because of injuries or anything under those circumstances. And Devontae Smith is the best number 2 receiver they've faced by far. Like, it's not even close if you go through the list of teams. If you go through the list of the stats and all that, Devontae Smith is the best secondary receiver by far. And that's going to be a really hard matchup, I think, for them to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I legitimately think that the next closest guy who played the whole game was Darnell Mooney. So yeah, I'm with you, Smith. I like Darnell Mooney, but he's not Devonta Smith. Yeah, and I'll make a comparison to the last time these two teams played in the Super Bowl. The Eagles' defense, the knock on them was like, well, who have they played this year? Like they didn't really play a great offense all year, and then it got to the Super Bowl and the defense really struggled. Could there be something there, or is it, hey, no, these players are actually still just good, and it's just you can't blame them for who they played.
I mean, I think it's a bit of both. Like, obviously, they've played good offenses, right? They've played Buffalo, although they struggled in the 2 games against Buffalo. They scored 30 and 29 points in those 2 games. They've played decent competition. It's not like they played a soft schedule, but the proof is in the pudding as far as this particular matchup goes. Like, Devontae Smith could have a big game, and especially as we talk about, you have those 2 additional defenders basically in every matchup. In the simplest of terms of describing football, 2 additional defenders. Who are you going to pit them against as far as mismatches go? If all of a sudden it's Devontae Smith at 1-on-1 all the time because you're too focused on AJ Brown and Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith can eat up even the very best defenses in the league. So it's just going to be one of those things where if he's able to win on the outside quickly and Jalen Hurts is able to make those throws, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Devontae Smith comes home with a Super Bowl MVP this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's possible. I think you picked them, didn't you, in our preview show?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think it could be possible. Kyle, let's go to the other side of the ball, because what's so funny about this is we talk so much about how the first side of the ball, this is great versus great versus all across the board. It's like, what's better? It's like either like good or like amazing, like for every single category. It's not this case on the other side. The Eagles are pretty consistently good throughout. The Chiefs have some holes here. Now, the flip side is they also have the most valuable player in the sport, if not in sports in general, in Patrick Mahomes. But so that obviously is going to make some things worse. But there are edges here that the Eagles have. Also, Overlap 618 with another super chat. Devonta Smith is the best number 2 receiver in the league. Don't at me. This is Overlap Mod. The Chiefs will have no answer for Smith. We'll see, Overlap. We'll see.
We'll see, indeed. Yeah. I love his enthusiasm. Big time Eagles fan. Yeah, I mean, what more needs to be said about Patrick Mahomes at this point, right? Like, he's going for his 4th Super Bowl overall, 3rd in a row. He's going for in his 5th appearance. I mean, he has a Hall of Fame resume already. Obviously, he is one of the most talented players to ever play this game. I mean, the list goes on and everything he's done. The accomplishments are there. The resume is there. This is not a referee thing. This is a Patrick Mahomes. It's amazing thing, and I think it's been amazing that I keep going back to that moment where they decided to trade Tyreek Hill to dispense his salary throughout the roster and also draft well, which is something that they have done throughout this tenure. And I just keep going back to that moment and just how much I think Mahomes has able to change his game in a lot of ways. Like, when we first watched Mahomes come onto the scene in that first Super Bowl and all that kind of stuff, like, this was a guy who, the arm was just the most impressive thing. Like, he could throw, we would just watch these 70-yard touchdown passes over and over and over again. It was such an amazing feat to see. And we don't really see that anymore with Kansas City, like, mainly because the way teams defend them, but also they don't have like a guy like Tyreek Hill anymore. And he's just always been able to adapt to the occasion. And now he plays this style where, like, his numbers don't look good and everyone thinks he's not the best quarterback anymore at times. But then it's also like he's just managing the game so perfectly and better than everybody else that it's an impossible thing, because it doesn't matter if this team's down 5, up 5, 4th quarter, 1st quarter, he's going to have the right answer to put his team in the best position to win. And it's almost perfect every time. Like, there's almost hardly any mistakes at this point.
The only person I can compare it to is Tom Brady. Those are the only 2 I've seen who are so consistently good at putting the ball in the right place. Obviously, I think, Andy Reid gets some credit here as well of constantly scheming up the right things. And this is we always criticize the Bills for, they play their zone defense and the Chiefs can just run their zone busters. Last time these 2 teams played each other, that's what happened. The Eagles played a lot of zone defense. Vic Fangio is a new defensive coordinator, but he was a special assistant that year in the Super Bowl for the Eagles, interestingly enough. But still, the difference between that and being the defensive coordinator. But we've seen Mahomes be able to kind of, dice this up. We've seen Andy Reid be able to scheme it up against zone coverage. The question is, this is a really good zone coverage team, and they might be able to do things that you're not used to seeing happen to the Chiefs when they run these concepts. They have 2 weeks to prepare. They can get ready for more of these elaborate concepts that the Chiefs are going to be in. So I find that very interesting. And also, they will play man sometimes. They will mix things up as well. Fangio, while he has a coverage he likes, he's not afraid to change it if he has to. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting game for Fangio and this defense to evaluate because, like you said, this Kansas City offense may be the best offense in NFL history against just a straight deep zone, right? Like, there's just so many variables that are tough to deal with. Number one, obviously they have Travis Kelce, who may be the best zone pass catcher in the history of football. I mean, that is a huge advantage. Number two, you have Patrick Mahomes, who just dices every defense, especially if you give him time and windows to throw. He's just so good at making those throws at all occasions. I'm not shocked to see the numbers of how much success he's had against Vic Fangio in his career just because of that matchup ideology. But it is going to be interesting to see how they handle it in this game. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how Mahomes goes up against this defense. And, it's a very talented defense. Like, we mentioned the aspect of Travis Kelce. I mentioned the aspect of Travis Kelce in this thing, but the Eagles defense has done very well at throws over the middle and covering those spaces. They've had really good players in those situations, whether it's a Reed Blankenship, who's done very well this season, whether it's a Zach Bond at the linebacker position. Those guys have done really well in those matchups. It's just going against Travis Kelce, and can they do it one more time consistently?
Yeah. Zach Bond might be the key to the Eagles if they win this game. I mean, he might be. I think if the Eagles win, we're talking about him after, he didn't win the MVP award because he didn't have a turnover, but he was really the key factor here. I was curious, so I went back and wanted to see when's the last time the Chiefs played a great linebacker. They played the Buccaneers earlier in the year, so okay, excuse for me to watch Levante David tape. Sign me up. And he was a real factor. They really struggled at moving the ball. They actually started putting Kelce out wide to then start to get the ball, have things work, which works against Tampa Bay. I'm not sure if it's going to work against Philadelphia because they have great players everywhere essentially. But that was interesting to me. So I do think the Eagles are it again. Earlier, I started this by saying there are some mismatches here. This isn't one of them. This is great versus great.
Yeah. I mean, it all does feel like great versus great in a lot of aspects, but that is definitely the biggest one where you have this Mahomes and Kelce duo who have been so good. And then you have this secondary, this group for the Eagles with Zach Bond, who's the best linebacker in football this season. I don't know if he is consistently, but he has been this season for sure. And these safeties in CJ Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship, who have had resurgent seasons in this Vic Fangio defense. Those guys have all played really well. It's just going to come down to who's going to win those matchups. Can the Chiefs consistently move the ball? Because I do think there are some elements to this game that I think the Chiefs can take advantage of, but I think it all starts and comes from the idea of Mahomes and Kelce are going to be able to get theirs when they need to, and they can beat, a singular matchup like that.
The other thing I find fascinating is, like I said, the Eagles will on occasions play some man coverage, especially on obvious passing situations. The Chiefs are so good with these pick plays and these rub routes, and they're probably the best team in the league at that. The Chiefs are at their worst when they're just throwing the ball down the field, when they're just trying to hit a slant or a go route. That's not what they do. It's a lot of trying to be clever and set these things up. If I'm the Eagles preparing, those are the two things I'm focused on, is stopping those, pick plays and stopping those zone busters. Because if you can get this to a game where it is the downfield passing, weirdly that is where the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes are at their worst this year.
Yeah, because they just don't have the receivers to do that.
Right.
And as I said, that there's not really a weak link in this defense. There are plenty of weak links, I think, in this offense. They brought Juju Smith-Schuster back, who has had some moments in the playoffs, but I don't think is anyone you can really feel that comfortable about. Xavier Worthy has had some big splash plays, but has also been kind of inconsistent. He's a rookie. It's understandable. And then Hollywood Brown, who came back late in the season, hasn't quite been the guy they were hoping for yet, but he's had some moments as well. it's not the same group that we're expecting from a Kansas City team, and it's just going to make it a lot harder to get those downfield passing plays, and especially against a coverage group like this. I'm honestly just not expecting it. I'm not expecting a lot of plays down the field in this game for Kansas City because, I mean, if there's a big play for Kansas City 20, 30 yards down the field, I feel like Philadelphia made a mistake. Like, it's not going to be one of these guys winning matchups one-on-one. It's going to be a blown coverage, a missed assignment, anything like that that's going to open one of these guys up. Now, granted, as you mentioned with the pick plays, the rub routes, all that, Kansas City may be better than anybody in the league at creating those blown coverages and mismatches because they're just so good at deceiving you at the line of scrimmage, deceiving what they want to do. And not only that, like we talk about Fangio motion versus man or man versus zone. Kansas City is so good at motioning players to identify a lot of coverages, and Mahomes is so good at understanding those coverages and knowing where his mismatch is. So how Mahomes handles those situations, reads the coverage, and makes the right play is just going to become a really big factor in this game.
Yeah. I'm going to offer one piece of advice to Vic Fangio and secondary players. Just switch. Just, hey, they're doing a pick play. Let's treat it like basketball. Okay, I'll cover someone else. That's fine.
It's a lot easier said than done in the moment, right?
It is. Like, yes.
Don't turn into Ben Solak.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, don't want any of that.
The Shakir,
Yes, I get it. It's difficult. I'm just saying we've seen teams do it before. That would be my strategy. Although if I was in charge of strategy, I would obviously be way worse than the people who are paid to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it is fair point. Like they should do a lot of switching. The issue is if you miss the switch by even a half a second, you're giving up a touchdown, and that's the issue. Yeah. So it is going to be fascinating to see how Philadelphia handles those situations, those rub routes, like you said, those pick plays, because you don't always have to get it right, but for these 60 minutes, you do, because Kansas City is going to take advantage, and that's something that they're just so good at. And I think there's a lot of things that they can do. I think that the big element to this game I'm looking at, along with all that kind of stuff, is the way they use those jet sweeps and things like that. I think that's probably where they're going to get their most advantage, is moving these guys laterally, whether it's a running back out of the backfield on a swing route, whether it's a jet sweep with Xavier Worthy. I think those are the things, using their speed on the outside, is they're going to be, I think, how they have to create their advantages, because they are still very fast as a Kansas City offense.
Yeah. Another thing is, if you're the Eagles and you're trying to avoid these pick plays and everything, overlap 6 days and everyone shut up. Jackson Spagnola has spoken. Yes, that's right. That is my new name. Kyle, another thing you can do to avoid these pick plays is get it to a 3rd and 9. Don't have these situations where they just need 4 yards for a first down. That can make things easier. Now, they can run pick plays for 9 yards too, but at least you're less likely to do that, and you have more time to get back in position if something like that happens. Kyle, the Chiefs run the ball a decent amount. They're still definitely a pass-heavy team. They still, that's what they do, but they will run the ball a decent amount. And the Eagles, despite the fact they play a lot of 2 safety deep coverages, 2nd best rush EPA in the league defensively this year. They are not an easy team to run on. And you wonder if the Eagles can, for the first time this playoffs, really shut down the running game. Will that completely get the Chiefs out of the rhythm? Like we said, you get them into the point where they have to just say, hey, Xavier Worthy, can you beat Darius Slay? That's what you want to be in if you're an Eagles fan.
Absolutely, because like I said, you have a huge matchup advantage on the outside, and I think you have one on the line of scrimmage too, in the trenches, because like you said, they've done a decent job of running the ball. They have those pieces that Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco are good running backs, but it's just so impressive what this Eagle team does, because they don't win in numbers, like you said. They don't blitz a whole lot. They don't, they keep their safeties over the top, but they just win by dominance in the personnel. And they certainly have a dominance in personnel that should be feared, because they have guys like Jalen Carter, like Jordan Davis, like Milton Williams on the line of scrimmage, like Josh Sweat on the edge, Nolan Smith on the edge. Those guys are all awesome, and they all can win at the line of scrimmage. So that is going to be the huge element to this game. And, we've talked about it a lot this season. This Kansas City offensive line has been a real problem for them in times. And, you look at these offensive tackles they have, and Juwan Taylor, he's had his struggles. He's better in pass blocking, not as much as run blocking, which is a huge element to what we're talking about right now. And then they bumped Joe Thuney, the outside, who Joe Thuney has been their best left tackle this season. He just has.
Yeah.
And he's a very good offensive lineman, but he's an elite offensive guard. He's one of the best offensive guards in the league, quite frankly. And taking him out of that position and putting Nick Caliendo in there is a huge problem, I think, for Kansas City, because you're getting a lesser version of Joe Thuney when he's on the outside, and you're getting Caliendo against a interior defensive line that mentions Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, and Jalen Carter, who feel like they're going to dominate him at any opportunity they get.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith are so good that like you have to imagine like 90% of runs will just be to the right, like it'd be like, interior runs to the right in this game. But obviously that's not ideal because you can kind of game plan around that. And so yeah, I just feel like I feel like there is potential here. That being said, again, the Chiefs pick their spots well. They also don't just run the ball like. I'm kind of saying, oh, they'll just run up the gut. That's not what they do. They're very creative in how they run. Andy Reid isn't just clever in the passing game. There was a play earlier this last week when they played the Bills where they had two tight ends in the backfield. They sent both of them to the right and then handed the ball off to the left. They scored a touchdown. Then later on in the game, they faked the handoff to the left. Mahomes went to the right with the two tight ends there and then rushed for a touchdown that way. So, like, you get clever stuff here with Andy Reid, and you might have to be very clever in this game.
Yeah. How much do you think Mahomes' legs are going to be a factor in this game?
A lot. I think that he this is what the Chiefs do is in big moments, Mahomes runs the ball. He doesn't run the ball in the regular season. I actually heard him in an old interview. He brought up how, like, I think it was his rookie year. He ran the ball in the regular season and got banged up and then was like, oh, not doing that anymore. And like, that's legitimately just what they do. Obviously there was the quarterback sneak when he got injured as well. Like, they save it for the big moments. In the big moments, he is going to not just run design runs. He's going to scramble more. He's going to be less afraid to, he won't be afraid to, I'm phrasing this horribly. He sometimes won't slide. Instead, will lower the shoulder for first downs. We've seen him do that in previous like big games. Like, his legs are going to be a factor. They are.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels like they have to be against this team because, like you said, I mean, this team, I mean, you just go across the board, even just like their stats, like they are number 2 in run defense. They're number 2 in pass rush. They're number 1 in coverage. Like, there's just not a lot of holes in this Eagles defense. I mean, there's not a hole in this Eagles defense. No. Even like the guys they bring off the bench, like Oren Burks is going to start in the Super Bowl because of an injury to Nakobe Dean. He's been fantastic.
They had a forced fumble against Washington. Yeah, he's been great.
Yeah, I mean, they just have every guy that's on this team right now that's available to play in this game. If they want to go nickel, DeJean, Quinion Mitchell, Darius Slay are all awesome. If they want to go base, they have those 3 defensive linemen. They have Sweat and Smith on the edge. Like, they have like 13 great defenders for 11 can play at a time. Like, it's just amazing that they have all this personnel and this talent.
Kyle, I could probably do an hour just on this Chiefs offensive line and pass protection versus this Eagles defensive line. I think this is very fascinating, and I'm not going to jump in and say this is going to be this is going to be Super Bowl 55 where Mahomes is running for his life all game. I don't know if that's the case. In fact, this might be one of the better situations I think he's had, which is saying something because of the horrible situations that he's had last year. Obviously, with blanking on his name, Smith for the left tackle, 2-time champion, and also Jawan Taylor, Donovan Smith. That's right. Going up against Nick Bosa and Chase Young. Yeah, I mean, here's what I find interesting. Like I said, Thuney's moved out to left tackle. I don't know what's going on. Because he struggled at first. He was then perfect. He pitched a shutout against Buffalo, did not give up a single pressure. So maybe that was just a weird game, or maybe he's going to be very good. Definitely you have concerns there, and neither one of us are huge Jawan Taylor guys. So you can get pressure off the edge. Yes, people got mad at me when I said that it was a bad signing. Yes, there are Jawan Taylor guys.
Well, back then, I mean, they've watched him now. Who's still a Jawan Taylor guy? Go ahead and leave a comment if you're still a Jawan Taylor fan.
The officials are big Jawan Taylor guys.
That is true. He can just line up 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. That's fine.
Hey, my stance has always been if he can get away with it, he should keep doing it. Like that's what smart players do.
Yeah.
If the ump is giving you the ball if the ump's calling strikes 6 inches off the plate, you throw it up 6 inches off the plate.
Yeah, I mean that's true.
Yeah,
smart guy, Jawan Taylor.
Yes, I think so. And clearly smart agent too. The interior you have Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and then backup guard Mike Caliendo, who's I shouldn't call him a backup. He's a starter, right? Like he has now earned a starting job. Everyone's healthy. He's starting, so he's a starter. But he's been a backup for most of the season. You have Jalen Carter coming to town, and I find this so fascinating. Where do you put him? Because in theory, you either say, okay, we put you on the left guard, and then you have to help out. But then you're having a double team with your best guy. So sometimes you'll put him on the opposite guard to try and get one-on-one matchups. But Trey Smith is so good, he can actually kind of handle. He's one of the few guys in the league I don't hate with that matchup. So when it comes to that, that's something that on paper should be like an easy way to get consistent pressure, but might actually not be.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few options there that I think they can go with. And, it's not to mention, I don't know why I said Nick Caliendo earlier. I knew his name was Mike. My bad. And then not to mention, you mentioned all that stuff about running to the right, and they're probably just going to run to the right a lot. It's as big as a guy like Jordan Davis is, and Milton Williams is obviously a great player. They're not like terrific run defenders if you look at their PFF grades. They've had some struggle at those spots too. So it's not like you can just say, "Oh, we're going to put Jalen Carter over the left guard. You guys are going to defend the right side," sort of thing, and just hope for the best, because they may be able to run the ball on that side. Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey are two of the best in the game at what they do. So it's definitely going to be something that like the Eagles are going to have to pick their spots for where they want to try and get at that mismatch. And even if they decide to put Jalen Carter on Trey Smith or anything like that, Milton Williams or Jordan Davis could have a big game too. Those are all really good players in their own rights. They just have to pick their spots and when they want to do that.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I mean, last time these two teams played, we all talked about how, wow, this Chiefs offensive line is really going to struggle against the Eagles defensive line. Then there was the weird field thing, and it actually did fine, which I don't know if that's going to happen again. But that's just something I thought of. But like, there is a nightmare scenario for Kansas City where Thuney turns out last game he played against Buffalo was a fluke, and now you have him, Caliendo, and Jawan Taylor all struggling against really good defensive linemen. That there is that doomsday scenario.
Yeah, and you don't have another option, right? Like we saw DJ Humphries come out and play. It's not really working. You can't go back to the poor rookie. You just can't go back to this.
He might not even dress.
Yeah. So you have to hope this works, and it might not, but it also could. They've done very well in these situations, and it feels like every year we're going into a Kansas City Super Bowl saying like, man, I don't know about some of these matchups on the offensive line. Like they have some really great players and some not so great players, and they always seem to rise to the occasion. Like you said with that.
Well, not always.
Well, yeah.
There's one year they very much did not.
Tampa Bay won aside. They seem to rise to the occasion a lot, and I think a lot of that too is the growth of Mahomes as a player. Where like, yeah, I mean he's won MVPs before that Super Bowl and all that kind of stuff, and you know what? There were bad drop passes in that game as far as the Tampa Bay Kansas City game goes. And yes, there was one that hit a guy in the chest as he was falling down throwing, things like that. But I think it was a lot of Mahomes trying to go for a lot of big plays, knowing that he had mismatches on his offensive line against their defensive line, and just saying, well, I'm just going to take on the pressure because I'm Patrick Mahomes and make an amazing play. And that's just not really what he does anymore. Like he does it sometimes because he can, and he does it in the right spots, but now he's willing to take the easy play when it's there. And those are huge factors to his growth and kind of his brilliance now, to where, yes, he was able to do that before, but that's why they lost the Super Bowl at the same time. And now they're winning Super Bowls consistently because he's had that growth. And so, yeah, like Philadelphia could win on the line of scrimmage and Mahomes still make plays because he's getting the ball out quickly and making the right reads.
Right. Completely agree. I always have to point out one of those falling down throws. Yes, it was dropped by his receiver, but also what should have been caught by Devin White went right through Devin White's hands. Wish it was intercepted. But that was besides the point. It worked out okay for me that day. I shouldn't complain. Kyle, you're absolutely right. Mahomes can avoid pressure, although again, he is still human. Like pressure still does affect him, and especially if they're getting pressure from multiple different areas, that could affect him. But yeah, I think he's the best quarterback under pressure I've ever seen. The way he avoids sacks, gets the ball out of Brady's very good, but Brady would sometimes just have to say, he wasn't the athlete Mahomes was, so he didn't have that aspect of avoiding sacks. I think they're both really good. Brady probably was a little better at throwing the ball away, but like Mahomes is the second best I've seen, and then also incredible at making guys miss.
Yeah. No, I mean they had, Buffalo even in that game had opportunities to do things, and like they put pressure on Mahomes that forced a punt when they're up 22-21. They couldn't take advantage in the end, but yeah, I mean there were still mistakes made in that game too. So it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, I mean he is so good at any situation you throw at him, it becomes almost impossible. He is one of the most talented players ever for a reason, and like you said, he's probably the best under pressure, under duress that we've seen from any quarterback. I would say Aaron Rodgers is probably number 2, and he might be number 1 by a pretty good distance still in that category. Like he's just he can look a defender straight in his face, right, point blank, and make a great play. It's so hard. Like it takes a full focus from everybody on the defensive side of the ball to stop Patrick Mahomes, and that's why we've gone through this review for almost 50 minutes at this point, and it feels like we're saying, well, the Eagles have this, and the Chiefs have to figure out answers to that. It feels like a lot of that. Well, the answer to a lot of it, and he's going to be able to overcome those circumstances anyways.
It cut for me for a second, but I'm pretty sure I knew what you were saying. The answer to it is Mahomes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a weird cut. That happened to me too.
Okay, gotcha. Interesting. I don't know who's and that was on or what, but Kyle, before we get to the picks, special teams. We can't go through this whole thing without the special teams breakdown. We got Harrison Butker, who is very obviously very good. Not having his best year, he got banged up in the middle of the year, but it's still someone you trust in a big spot. The last time he missed a field goal in the playoffs was against the Eagles in the Super Bowl last time they played. So definitely very good in those aspects. Jake Elliott, usually very good. Very rarely misses field goals in the playoffs. His career playoff field goal percentage is 95.7, but he struggled in extra points, and especially this year, he's missed 3 extra points. Was 7 for 7 last time we saw, but definitely it's a dome. I think any big kick, I trust him to make, but do you get a missed extra point here or something like that?
It could happen. I mean, he definitely hasn't convinced us that it's going to work out otherwise. So we'll see definitely on Jake Elliott in this game. And, as much as, just as importantly as we said, Jalen Hurts has to play a clean game. There can't be mistakes. You have to maximize your point output against a team like Kansas City, who always seems to get just enough points that they need. Jake Elliott has to maximize his point opportunities. You cannot lead this game with missed kicks. And you cannot leave this game like a Tyler Bass situation saying you missed a kick to win the game or tie the game or whatever. You have to maximize your opportunity. There can't be missed extra points, and inside 50 yards, you can't miss a field goal. It's just unacceptable. It's the Super Bowl. Come on now.
Yeah, even Jake Moody was making field goals left and right in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, if Jake Moody can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true, but for the kick returning and punt returning stuff, I don't know. We don't know how much you want to get into this. I will say Nico Vermingio has been very, the Eagles have been a little bit better in that stuff this season, but Remigio has all of a sudden in the playoffs been great. He's averaging 26 yards per punt return in the playoffs this year. So I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City. That's another part of this too. Is like Kansas City's so good on special teams. They've gotten. I mean, it's been well documented their ability to escape with victory from the jaws of defeat, sort of thing. But like. They're also just really good at this stuff. They're really good at special teams. They block field goals when they need to.
Right.
They had a big kick return in that Texans game. They've had some timely punt returns. I mean, their punter is obviously their punter is very good too. All that kind of stuff. Like they're really good on special teams. That's another part of this team, why this team's maximized this game and they've been able to win so many. So the Eagles got to match it. They got to fill their lanes. They got to, not let this guy get a big return, and those are going to be the keys.
Yeah. Completely agree. This should be it should be interesting. And again, this stuff seems like, oh, it's whatever, who cares? But last time they played, I mean, the Eagles played a punter who hadn't played in months coming off of an injury. He shanked the punt that resulted in a big Kadarius Toney punt return. That was a big play in that game. That game was decided by 3 points. Letting the Chiefs essentially have a free drive starting inside the 10 helps a lot. So, yeah, as a whole, not something that's going to move the needle, but that is something that we can still talk about. Kyle, I think we're good. I think we've covered it all. Right? Have we missed anything?
No, I think we did it. We did the coordinators, obviously. We did a bit on the coaches. We didn't talk about them too much, but I think we covered just about everything.
Yeah. So I guess all that's left is our picks. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Kyle, if I get this correct for the 5th year in a row, I will have won the Pick'em show. And it's interesting. So we've done this 5 years. I picked, weirdly, I picked against Mahomes in 2 out of the 3 Super Bowls he's played in. I picked against him in Tampa Bay, picked him to beat the Eagles, and I picked against him last year, although last year you were in the lead and you also picked San Francisco. We've never disagreed on our Super Bowl picks. We've always thought the same team was going to win, even though we picked the underdog twice. Kyle, I'm not picking against Mahomes. I don't care what the situation is. I'm not losing the Pick'em show because I picked against Mahomes. If I lose it because I picked him, so be it. I'll go 26-23 Chiefs in overtime.
26-23 Chiefs in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hate the pick. Obviously, this game's going to be very close. We're looking at the spread here. It's 1.5. These are 2 of the most complete teams in football. And I think that's a very justifiable pick. I'm going Eagles 27-24. I think the Eagles have the talent advantage. I think they're the most complete team in the league. And Jalen Hurts has played as mistake-free as he could, basically, during this time. And I absolutely think he can go out and win this game if he plays mistake-free football again. So, yeah, I got the Eagles in this game, and I think that they got the talent.
Well, that's good at least, because I feel like it would feel a little bit of a bummer if you do finally win, if like it's because like you were down and I just got the game wrong. Like at least like the fact that you're picking the other team, it makes it it would feel more earned, I think. Not that it would, not that you would take it either way, but
yeah, I'm definitely going to take a win either way. But yeah, it was a it'll definitely be interesting. Yeah, I feel pretty good. I like the Eagles matchups here. You know, we just went through it for an hour. I think the Eagles got more talent on both sides of the ball.
They do. And every time I kept looking at things and I kept being like, okay, this feels like an advantage Eagles. And I kept almost being like, my first reaction is, okay, I'm just picking the Chiefs. I think I said on the conference championship previews, whoever wins out of Buffalo or Kansas City, I'm just picking that team to win. And like there kept being things where I'm like, am I really picking the Chiefs to win? Like Zach Bond is great at covering over the middle. Like they could run the ball well. They could stop the run well. I just kept feeling like I just feel like there's such an advantage quarterback wise. And I'm not a Hurts hater at all. I like Jalen Hurts, but like this is it's a huge advantage. Just what Hurts has done this year and what Mahomes he does year in and year out. It's a massive mismatch in my opinion.
It is. It is there, and it is in coaching. As much as I think Nick Sirianni gets too much hate, but Andy Reid's just a better coach too, and I think that's a huge element to this game as well. So, like we say it all the time in our offseason preview stuff when we're doing the divisional previews. The two most important positions in an NFL team are quarterback and head coach, and Chiefs have massive advantage there. I just feel like the Eagles had massive advantage everywhere else. So we're going to see how that balances. How much does the coach and quarterback advantage hurt or work over the rest of the team?
Like Keemran in the chat says Jackson puts more time into it. Kyle's busy looking at headwear. Yeah, that's very good.
I got this for free with a Tyrese Rice basketball jersey, honestly. I didn't even pick this out. I just like it.
Yeah, no, I think it's gotta be your thing.
Yeah. Anyone who's like under 30, just go Google Tyrese Rice basketball highlights for Boston College. You'll be amazed. Kid was a hooper. He's older than me.
Yeah, that's me. I'm under 30 by a year, so I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely go watch. It's worth it. He was the man.
Yeah. Okay, Kyle. I did a community notes poll to see who our community thinks will win the Super Bowl. Over 6,000 people voted on it, so it might not be everyone who listens to this podcast, but the 53% said Kansas City, although the comments were exclusively talking about the refs.
That sounds about right. What'd you say, 67%?
No, that was actually weirdly, that's for a different poll that I was just about to talk about. 53%.
53%. Oh, okay. Got it.
So they're divided. They feel like this could be a coin flip game, and I kind of agree.
Yeah, that is a close spread, and it matches, I think, the sentiment for this team. Although I do think a lot of that is probably Chiefs haters too on the other side.
I think so. I think there's some wishful thinking going on with some of these predictions. I asked the community notes people as well, who do you want to win the Super Bowl? I did misspell Eagles. I wrote it ESGLES, but 67% said East goals.
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah. So people are rooting for Philadelphia, which is not usually what happens. And it's also funny how it seems like every day there's like, oh, here's another clip of Eagles fans like bowling, like shoving someone off a cliff who was wearing Washington gear at the game.
Yeah, classic good guys, classic America team, the Philadelphia Eagles. Who would have thought we'd been here? Everybody make sure to go get your cheesesteaks on Super Bowl Sunday. And, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say fly, Eagles, fly.
Yeah, don't want to have that clip out there. I don't know. Should be an interesting game. I mean, again, I don't know. I wouldn't hate seeing a three-peat. I'm never going to be happy to see a three-peat, but like I want to see one in my lifetime.
It'll be cool. Like,
yeah.
I'm all for history outside of like when my favorite basketball player gets traded for no reason whatsoever. History, outside of that,
Yeah.
like I'm okay with any sort of history. Obviously my personal vested interest is like, there's obviously the GOAT conversation that's looming all over this. I'm just kind of reserved to the fact that I don't care about it anymore. Like, I don't really care about GOAT conversations in a lot of ways. Like, Brady's the guy that I'm going to love forever. So it is what it is.
You care a little.
I mean, like, I don't know. There are people out there who believe like Kobe Bryant's the best basketball player of all time, and they won't hear otherwise. And it's just like, all right, man, like, what am I going to argue you for? Just live your life. And Mahomes could win 10 Super Bowls. I'll still be like, yeah, Brady's my guy.
Yeah, I don't know. You can always do the different eras. Like the quarterbacks. If Brady played in the era where quarterbacks ruled all, he would have won Super Bowl every year.
That's the thing that always bothers me about these conversations is we choose the worst arguments to back up. Like, LeBron lost 6 times in the finals is an argument. It's like, okay, because he made it every single year, stuff like that. And my favorite one now is I'm seeing circulating is they have the stat head player comparison things, and it's like, I think it's Mahomes' first 112 games against Brady's first 112 games. And it's like, go ahead and put Mahomes in 2001 and see if his stats are like the same that it are now. It's just a completely different game to compare the passing stats from 2000 to 2018.
Yeah, no, it's great. Why are we like? Who cares?
It really, like, just love your guy. Like, if you want Kobe to be the best player ever, then Kobe is the best player ever. If Mahomes is the best player, I mean, you could say, if you're a slinging Sammy Baugh fan, Sammy Baugh is the best quarterback ever. Go at it, man. I don't care.
Talk to me when Mahomes is the best quarterback, safety, and punter in the league in the same year. Okay, then maybe he's in the combo.
Yeah, it just can't handle that. Like, he couldn't do all that.
No,
only one guy.
Yes, only one guy. So, Kyle, here we are. Somehow we ended this on Sammy Baugh, which I think we should end all of our shows on Sammy Baugh. Kyle, let them know where they can find us on Twitter before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Grondin. And make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That is at On the Sideline JK.
Of course, if you like audio-only podcast, anywhere you get your podcast, search On the Sideline Podcast. We'll be back Sunday at midnight after the Super Bowl. We're going to give everyone time to get back from their Super Bowl parties and everything, and then we will be able to, mostly Kyle, but it'll give me time to get videos out and everything, so definitely be on the lookout there. I will be making videos throughout the Super Bowl for those of us who are not going to Super Bowl parties. Kyle, that's the weird thing about this job is I can't go to Super Bowl parties. It's a great job, don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled with it, but that's the one thing you miss.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. It is a fun time to go out and see people and all that kind of stuff. But, if you, like you said, if you are not, or if you want to avoid your Super Bowl party guests for a little bit, this is the hardest working man in NFL media on Super Bowl Sunday. Just check out the page because he is churning out videos basically every second of the Super Bowl. He is working all through the night. So make sure to check it out.
Yes. Kyle, I've already started my adjusting my sleep schedule so I can stay up all night after the Super Bowl. We're doing that again. Videos when you wake up after the Super Bowl, there will be a dozen extra videos that came out before you went to bed to watch if you are interested. I think hopefully, I don't know what would be better for me. I think best case scenario is Mahomes throws like a game losing pick or like Travis Kelce like fumbles at the end of the game. I think that's the dream.
Oh yeah, definitely. You'd probably get the most views off that, right?
I think
so. A flag to end this game is how you get the most views, and evaluating the flag.
Yeah, that would help. Although then everyone just gets mad. no matter what you say, then people those videos always get downvoted to some degree. Those do look worse on that because people are upset. How dare you read the rule and then say this is your impression of the rule?
Do you get less money for downvotes compared to upvotes? I mean,
well, I think it pushes it less. I think is the thing.
Fair. Okay. So fair enough. Well, it would be pretty funny if that happened though.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for bad calls. Please give me one like horrible call against the Eagles. Just give me one. Like how Mahomes slightly gets touched in the helmet and then they called 15 yards. That'll help me.
Yeah. You just need one, and then it has to be so obvious that it'd be like terrible call.
Yes, everyone can agree.
And then everyone will just upload that. There you go. Or 67% of the people will apparently.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, that's what I'm rooting for is bad calls and then chaos at the end. But we're all rooting for chaos. We're all in agreement there.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Although chaos means the Chiefs are probably going to win. So
that's true. Could be a Malcolm Butler thing. Usually chaos for the Patriots didn't result in them losing.
That is true, unless it's off of helmet catches.
Yes. Yeah. Kyle, if the Chiefs lose, they'd beat us. They joined the Patriots as the teams in the club who have lost multiple Super Bowls they were favored to win.
Nice. Thanks.
Yeah. I saw that the Patriots, I was interested. I looked this up. The Patriots only were underdogs in one of their Super Bowls where they were 12-point underdogs against the Rams the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty crazy. The Chiefs have been underdogs 2 out of the 5 times. And the one time they were favored by more than 1.5 they lost to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty shocked we were favorites against the Seahawks because we hadn't been there in a while. And the Seahawks were kind of the darlings of the NFL at that time. That's the only one I'm pretty surprised about. Everything else, every other one, I'm not surprised we were the favorites.
Yeah, I think against the Rams, too, the most recent time. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that was just like, we're like, we just want, like, the Rams were there for their first time. Like, I think that was just a kind of a outside bias sort of situation. The Seahawks were the only one because they just won a Super Bowl too at that time.
Yeah, ATU Urban says Kelsey retires. What about like a Kelsey like retirement and then proposal to Taylor Swift? That could do well. Could get.
Will you do it? Will you do a proposal breakdown?
Yeah, I think so. I think okay. So this is you look at the knee. You can tell he's not a quarterback. Not taking a knee great here.
Will you be analyzing the socks throughout the game to see like where the ring was tucked or like?
Yeah. Oh, that would be good. Yeah.
Yeah. Where did the ring? Who had the ring the whole time? And all that kind of stuff. That would be pretty good. I want to see that breakdown if it happens.
Okay. If that happens, I will do a breakdown. I promise everyone here on the podcast. We'll see if that. I almost don't want to because like, what if that does really well? And that's like my new highest viewed video on the channel is that breakdown.
You know what every fan of your page wants is more Taylor Swift highlights. So
I think so. Yes. I'm here to see if Jackson is deriding Mahomes again. Why would we not be praising Mahomes? Mahomes is mediocre. No, of course we're going to talk about him as though he's great. He's won. He might win his 4th Super Bowl before he's 30. There's only one guy who's won more than that in their entire career.
Deriding Mahomes. We are deriding Mahomes. Going for his 4th Super Bowl. Right. When is it not deriding at that point?
He probably has. If you split his career in half, you see this with Brady. He probably, if you split his career in half, has had 2 Hall of Fame careers already, and he's not even 30.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
Yeah, I don't know. His O-line literally doesn't get called for offense. Well, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, if they play by a different rule book, obviously it's just too unfair.
Right. Yes. Kyle, any final thoughts? You're ready to get out of here?
No, I think we've gone over. So let's get out of here. We've had enough.
Yes. Again, thank you to everybody. We do appreciate it. We'll be back on midnight after the Super Bowl. Be on the lookout for us there. And until then, have a good one.
Peace.